just broke up with my boyfriend right before we were about to move in together. It was right after a day of apartment hunting, and I ended up sobbing in my car. To make things worse, his mom chased me down the street when I left. I'm a 22-year-old female, and my now ex-boyfriend is 23. We've been dating since high school. 8 whole years. We've grown and changed together, and our relationship has been pretty amazing. We communicated well, doted on each other, had inside jokes, and felt super comfortable as a couple. But clearly something was off, or I wouldn't be here spilling my guts. As we transitioned into adulthood, I started asking the bigger questions, like about having kids and future plans. He's never really wanted kids, but I do. I was advised to wait until we were older to get his real answer. When I started asking him about his career plans and personal growth, he'd often get quiet and give me a lot of I don't knows. This became a regular thing, me asking big questions, him giving little answers, and then asking for time to think. Despite this, we were happy. We'd cuddle, watch Netflix, go ice skating, have romantic dinners, and gush over how much we adored each other. But those unanswered questions kept nagging at me. Why didn't he want to answer them? Why didn't he ask these questions about me? It was frustrating. We'd been talking about marriage and moving in together, but I felt this growing pressure for answers. Whenever I forgot about my concerns, everything seemed perfect. We'd dream about our future together, naming our future pets and discussing TV shows. I kept shoving my doubts aside, thinking that being patient and supportive would eventually make things better. But it didn't. Eventually, something snapped. Last weekend, while we were looking at apartments, it hit me like a ton of bricks. After a post-appointment kiss, I got back into my car and broke down completely. I called my mom, who came over to help, but I was totally shattered. Something inside me just died, and I knew I had to break up with him. I realized it wasn't fair to ask him to change. I had been patient, but his answers, or lack thereof, just weren't making me happy. The silence, the avoidance, the I don't knows, it all added up. I thought we could grow through anything, but moving in together made me see things clearly. I wasn't ready to commit to this guy. Earlier this year, he said he was okay with having kids, which gave me such relief that I ignored everything else. But did he say that to make me happy or because he meant it? He's told me how much he loves me and how I've inspired him, but I wish he had more drive, thought about his future, and was more emotionally available. Breaking up with him felt impossible. I knew his family would turn on him, and I didn't want to destroy him. But my gut was telling me to do this, and it's never been wrong before. Asterisk, asterisk. Update. Asterisk, asterisk. The big conversation happened on Friday, a day earlier than planned. After writing this post and talking to family and friends, I couldn't bear waking up to that familiar pain in my chest anymore. We'd been texting normally, so he wasn't expecting it, which made it harder. I asked him to meet, and he agreed enthusiastically. I went over after running errands with my brother, who called himself the getaway driver. When I arrived, his family was decorating for Christmas. His mom asked me to help with the garland, and my heart was in my throat the whole time. I found a moment to sneak inside and talk to him. He was still in his pajamas, and when we hugged, I almost lost it. We went up to his room, and I gave him one last hug before telling him everything. I told him I was in so much pain, and that moving in together wasn't the right choice for us. Ultimately, I knew that committing to each other in that way wasn't right for me. And that was it. I'll post another update after this weekend when we talk more, but for now, I've made my decision. So I told him I just couldn't commit to him like that when the time came. I explained to him that it all hit me at once, like a freight train, and it definitely wasn't a smooth transition. I told him I was sorry. He looked totally shocked and asked why I was doing this. He said he thought everything was perfect and couldn't understand why I was saying all this. Then he asked where we should go from here. I told him I wanted to talk it out since we'd been together for so long, but I wasn't going to change my mind because it felt like the right choice. But instead of talking, he went to his dresser, changed clothes, grabbed his backpack, and left. I think his mom asked him for some Christmas help, but he just walked by her. Before leaving, he said, "See you Saturday," because our friends were having a Friendsgiving that day. I felt an overwhelming wave of hysteria wash over me. The reality of what I had just done hit hard. Every logical reason I had for breaking up just flew out the window. I wanted to handle the conversation gracefully, but I ended up being just raw and honest. Now I felt like the worst person ever. I quickly put on my shoes and ran down the stairs. His mom asked me for more Christmas help, but for the first time in years, I ignored her and just bolted out the front door. I was halfway down the street when I heard her calling my name, but I didn't look back. She called out again, louder, but I just rounded the corner toward the rest of the neighborhood. I called my brother and asked him to pick me up. He got there in what felt like 2 seconds, and I barely got in the car before he drove off. That was by far the hardest thing I've ever done. I was sobbing uncontrollably, and my brother held my hand. I can't believe I ended an 8-year relationship, but I did. When I got home, my family was there for me. They comforted me and shared their breakup stories. That was Friday. Today, Monday, I have to say, it was absolutely the right decision for me. After the initial tears and hysteria, I realized that I needed to make that decision a long time ago. I feel more complete now, if that makes sense, and I'm excited for what's next. Edit. Honestly, I'm kind of shocked at the response. Thanks to everyone, even those who don't agree with my decision. If I tried to include every detail of our relationship to justify myself, it would defeat the purpose of reading your honest responses. I appreciate every comment. Thanks for your time and input. Now, on to the next story. So, my friends were actually assaulting my blackout drunk girlfriend at her graduation party and filming it. They said it was a joke and then harassed us for weeks, trying to turn her against me. I've been dating Laura for a year now, and she's awesome. We really love each other. I've known Jake and Shelly for 2 years. We weren't super close at first, but we became really tight. They adore Laura and hang out with her more than me sometimes. They even once said that if we ever broke up, they'd pick her side over mine, even though I've known them longer. Anyway, Laura just graduated college and wanted to celebrate. She rarely drinks, maybe once or twice in the whole year I've known her, and that's usually because my friends pressured her into it. She doesn't handle alcohol well, being really small with no tolerance. So Jake and Shelly invited her over while I was at work. They were supposed to pick her up, take her to their place, and I would come by after work to get her so she wouldn't have to drive. I trusted them to watch over her because they're experienced drinkers. I got off work at around 2 a.m. and headed to their place. Laura's texts were getting sloppy, so I knew she was drunk and would need some looking after. But when I walked in, it was a nightmare. Laura was passed out on the ground. Shelly was on top of her, making out with her, and Jake was recording it on his phone. I freaked out, snatched his phone, and deleted the videos and pictures. Jake just laughed and said it was all a joke, that they were going to make fun of her in the morning. I picked Laura up off the ground and we left. She was so drunk she could barely walk, puking constantly and crying. Shelly texted me later, saying I shouldn't be mad because it was just a joke. I replied that they took advantage of her, and Shelly admitted it, but said they did it in a friendly way to help her let loose. I was disgusted and didn't reply. I spent the rest of the night taking care of Laura. The next day, Laura got a bunch of angry texts from them, blaming her for getting them in trouble. They accused her of being a grown woman who should handle her own mistakes and said it was basically her fault. If you saw how incoherent and blacked out she was, you'd know she couldn't pressure anyone into anything. She's been crying, torn between blaming herself and recognizing how disgusting they were. Jake and Shelly keep harassing me, saying I'm overreacting. They're spreading rumors about us, making me out to be a jealous boyfriend, and Laura, a dumb drunk. Please give me some advice. Am I wrong? Because I don't think I am. But Jake and Shelly are making it hard to ignore their side of the story. Comments deleted. Does your girlfriend remember how much she drank before blacking out? She sounds really sick after. And if she doesn't remember doing all these shots, I'd worry about how they got her into this state. OP, she doesn't remember, but she does recall that they didn't drink. And that's really fishy to me. So my friend sent me this crazy text that said, we really did take advantage of her, but in a friendly way. She wanted to take more shots, and we just wanted her to have fun because she's always stuck at home studying. It was more of a joke to her sober self. When I heard this, I was like, what the heck? I've had my suspicions about them being kind of shady, but I didn't want to believe it. I've always felt left out because they preferred hanging out with her and even told me as much. I feel so guilty because if it weren't for me, my girlfriend would have never met them. I can't help but blame myself for letting her go with them. Update. For several days after the incident, they were constantly bugging my girlfriend, blaming her and saying it was all her fault. She admitted to them that she was blackout drunk and couldn't remember anything. They totally jumped on that. feeding her all these false stories about what happened and saying I was just a controlling jerk, trying to isolate her from her true friends. They've known me for a long time, so they dug up all this dirt on me. Stuff like how I did drugs when I was 18, got busted for drunk driving, which I fessed up to when we first met, and how I'd slept around. They even said Laura was just another number to me. I'll admit, I used to be a wild party animal and had a pretty messy past, but I've changed. I love my girlfriend with all my heart. It really stung that they were using my past against me to turn her against me. I told her she should go to the police and file a report, and she agreed. She warned them to stop harassing her, and they went nuts. They showed up at our house late at night, left treats and presents at our door, and even got her parents involved. Her parents aren't idiots. Once they knew what happened, they banned those jerks from the house and threatened to call the cops if they ever came back. It was a madhouse. They even left handwritten notes for her parents, signed "Love your favorite son and daughter." WTF, right? Laura spent so many nights crying in my arms, feeling guilty and confused. Finally, after weeks of this harassment, we went to the police to file a report. Laura didn't want to press charges yet, and I'm working on helping her build up her self-esteem so she has the strength to do it if she ever decides to. The cops said she has enough evidence to press charges since she has that text where they admitted to taking advantage of her. They also mentioned they could confiscate their phones and search for any videos, though I'm not sure how that works. Laura just wanted to file a report so there's a paper trail in case anything happens in the future. She's thinking about getting a restraining order, but for now, they've stopped and gone silent. We've cut off contact with them and anyone else who believes their lies. Laura's in therapy and is slowly starting to understand that she was sexually assaulted. I sometimes go with her for support. The hardest part for her is not feeling like it's her fault. She keeps saying that if she hadn't gotten so drunk, none of this would have happened. I always tell her it's not her fault. We'll see if she decides to press charges. I can't force her to do anything she doesn't want to do, but I'll support her no matter what. So that's the wild ride we've been on. I still can't wrap my head around why they went psycho, leaving notes and gifts and trying to talk to her parents.